Katie, are you going to do an intro?
Yeah. All right. Hi, guys. Welcome back. Here we are streaming again with MEPACON, bringing you Brendon Lasalle and Dan Hundycz, two of our special guests that we've had for many years. And we're super excited to have them join us tonight to answer some questions and let us know what's going on in their crazy quarantine lives. So Amanda's with us, and she's going to ask some questions. But please feel free to chime in the chats and the various services that you're using to watch us right now. And we'll get your questions to the guys. So Amanda, you could take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us. I think this will be a really fun discussion. We want everyone to speak up if you have questions. We'll keep it pretty casual. But why don't we start a little bit? Brendon, we'll start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself personally? How did you get into gaming? Where did you get your starts? What's your origin story?
Sure. So in 1977, my parents went and visited with some of their friends in California, and they had a son who was had just picked up the Blue Book edition of the old Dungeons and Dragons, the Blue Holmes edition they call it now, and I was hooked since the beginning. And I was one of those hard lifelong nerds that just finally able to make it into a profession. And now, after a life of playing, I actually started writing and publishing. I had my first thing come out in 2002, and I've been at it ever since. I'm still super happy to.
Awesome. And so, yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about what do you do with the gaming industry from a professional standpoint?
Sure. So I'm a writer and designer. I have written for a lot of systems, but mostly but the thing I'm most known for, I'm the creator of X-Crawl, Ed's got his visual there. What? Yeah, that's the Kickstarter swimsuit edition that Ed shelled out for. So thank you, Ed. I do a lot of adventure design, and I also represent Goodman Games at conventions, both in meat space and online, and I've been doing that for a couple of years.
Awesome.
And I love MEPACON, and I still consider y'all my local convention, even though they have moved me away and have not sent me back yet. Y'all are still my show.
We're glad to hear that. So, Dan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself personally? How'd you get into gaming? What's your background?
Oddly, it started in 1977.
Woo! Class of 77. What?
A friend of mine.
Good year.
Yeah, a friend of mine had this game called Panzer Blitz, which was made by Avalon Hill, and I'd never seen anything like it because, I grew up playing all the normal Monopoly stuff. And then on to college to do things like Cosmic Encounters and Diplomacy, which a great way to lose friends. And then I never actually did Dungeons and Dragons. We were all hooked on Steve Jackson had a system called Melee, Wizard and Advanced Wizard and Labyrinth, and we had taken that and used that. And then was a school counselor for years, did a bunch of simulation stuff there, but I won't get into all that. And then after that, was actually working on a different project. And then a friend of mine, we wanted to have a geocaching themed birthday party. Actually, his kids wanted to have a geocaching themed birthday party. Excuse me. I said, I'll just go buy a geocaching board game because there's a board game about everything. And there wasn't. And so made that one. We started a company, got some shareholders, and I don't know, 8, 9 games later, I'm not sure where we are. Here we are at DPH Games with this cool little illustration guy. I should be wearing my hat. Oh my gosh, terrible at branding.
Yeah, you should have pulled that out. I know it's a little hard with us being remote. You don't remember to bring everything with you because you're at home.
No, I did one of those online, there you go, online dinner orders, and they never got the order, and then we had to run down there, and then they forgot part of it, and so I just kind of hopped on right now.
That's fine. So why don't you tell us a little bit about current games that you're working on? What's your biggest project now?
So let's see, our last game that came out was Gate of Relay and Agent 299, I think. So we've been Usurp the King has essentially been done for a while. It was actually Chad Chaz Marler had it as one of his top 30 most anticipated games of Origins last June. And the artist, artists, right, Brennan? So we needed 24 illustrations. He's done 12. So I've actually gone and hired another artist to get that finished. So that's running behind schedule, but Usurp the King is unique in that there's 7 different victory conditions and your allegiances shift throughout. It's a hierarchy of victory conditions.
And you're running that tonight, right? Or did you already run that?
Yeah, I think that's tomorrow. I don't know. My schedule's on the refrigerator.
Yeah,
well, it is available if you guys want to try it at MEPACON. He is running it virtually.
Actually, I'm doing that on Tabletop Simulator, so that's important to know. And we'll probably get into that, like how we're adjusting to what's happening in the current situation. We also have a simple kind of pattern matching game. And yes, it is tomorrow today's Saturday. Oh, good. I cut off Sunday. Anyway, it's tonight at 9. You're right. So it's some people may have played it in the past. It's called Yokai Hunters, and we renamed it for marketing reasons to Madoshi. It's a battle of the priests of the sun and moon, and that's kind of a pattern matching game. Inca Empire is a game that came out, a board game that came out in 2010 by I'm blanking on his first name, Alan Ernstine, and he developed a card game, and we signed that, and so that'll be coming out this summer. And then there's a modeling game of all things, and what else do we have in the works?
Like fashion models, right?
Yeah, it could be fashion. It doesn't have to be. It's about the modeling industry, and I don't know. Never mind. Won't get into that. And we're also, Legacy at Sea is still out there, but that's like my white whale. And then there's this cool little game. There's a couple in Harrisburg that has a couple of games we're looking at and working on.
I wouldn't know anything about that one.
No.
Okay. And then Brendan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your current projects, what you're working on?
Sure. So I just turned in the manuscript for the newest edition of X-Crawl. It's going to be X-Crawl Classics, so it'll be out with the in the Dungeon Crawl Classics rules. I actually play tested that a lot at earlier MEPACONs, and now it's finally done and turned in, and we too are working on the illustrations. And but so far so good. And so that is good and done. I'm working on an adventure. What I worked on today, I worked on an adventure for there's a game system that is kickstarted last year called Dark Trails by my good friend David Beatty, and I am working on one of the stretch goal adventures for that called Not So Fast, Billy Ray. That I've run that a few times, and besides that, I'm working on a lot of. I'm starting to work on the stretch goals, the adventures that will be the stretch goals for the X-Crawl Classics Kickstarter when that hits, and we don't know when that's going to be yet. So
awesome. So how could people keep in touch with you if they want to help you with your Kickstarter? Do you have? Oh,
I would be more than grateful. You could send an email to info@goodman-games.com and ask to be added to our mailing list, or follow X-Crawl Classics on Twitter, or on there's an X-Crawl Facebook group, and I would be very grateful for whatever support the MEPACON fans and the universe can throw me. I would be super grateful for. And it's like I said, the manuscript is done, and we're in the layout and book design and art stages right now. So it's happening.
Awesome. Do you do a lot of projects through Kickstarter?
I have done a few. So Goodman Games, who I represent, they do Kickstarters like several a year. I've worked on quite a few. This is only the second one that I would really say was one of my projects personally, but I have worked on adventures and backup things for a bunch of them. I've done, when we had our Mutant Crawl Classics Kickstarter, I wrote an adventure for that, and I've written bits and bobs for other stuff. Yeah, it's I love Kickstarter. It's been a huge boon to the tabletop role-playing game industry, that's for sure.
And Dan, I know you use Kickstarter a lot as well.
We do. We hadn't planned on using it for Inca Empire because the main retailer I use was going to release that at Origins, and well, something got in the way, so we may go to Kickstarter with that one. But I definitely use it. It's probably one of the two main distribution channels that a small publisher can use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kickstarter is fantastic, and it has been very. I think board games have had a huge sort of like, resurgence in the last several years. I think that Kickstarter has been a big part of that, from what I can tell as an outsider to the whole board game thing. It seems that way. Am I right, Dan?
It parallels it. It started growing when the Euro games came over, so it's hard to do a cause and effect, but
sure.
It's definitely made a vast number of titles more available, that games that wouldn't have gotten made before. It's much easier to make them now.
Sure.
It also provides a platform where people who want to develop games can find the resources to make their game happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very true. And I know Brendan, you had mentioned it, and Dan, you both did. You guys, at MEPACON, you've run stuff to play test it, to see how it's going to work prior to it. So let's dig into nostalgia a little bit, and I want to hear from each of you about your first MEPACON. Go ahead, Brendan. We'll start with you.
Okay, so my first MEPACON, I'm not sure when the year was, but it was the last year that you were at the old facility, not the one that we were just in last year, but the old one. We were kind of in this basement setting where we had all these tables set up and had a bunch of games going on at once. It was still I believe it was still in Scranton, but it wasn't the hotel that we've been at for the last several years. That was my last one, and it was so busy. I got there, I got set up, and as I recall, I got there late on a Friday. I ran Friday night game, 3 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, and drove home and barely interacted with anybody in the staff other than to find out where my table was, And it was only in the years after that when I kind of slowed my schedule down that I sort of got to know everybody. And but I've been going to MEPACON. We were in I was in Salem, Massachusetts for previous 6 years before we moved back to Georgia, and that was my they were closer cons, but MEPACON was always my show. It was always the one that I loved to go to, and the twice a year factor was huge. So I could test something in the spring and then mess with it, and then come back and try the revamp version in the fall. So it was great, and I've made a lot of really good lifelong gaming buddies there. And of course every year I played with the Balasinos every year, and a lot of the other guys, Spike and some of the other fellows that I see every year. So, this is terrible.
I kind of remember that first convention. I don't think before the convention, if I'm recalling correctly, there wasn't much advertising for your events, and you did all your recruiting for your games on site at the moment, and all your games filled up instantly. It was just amazing.
But this used to be at the Days Inn or something.
At one point, prior to the Hilton, it was up in Clark Summit at the Ramada.
Yeah, Ramada. That's what Gavin Pinchback was saying. Was it Clark Summit?
Yep. 2013 would it have been up there?
I believe so. We were there we had our longest run of a hotel there, followed by the Hilton after it. And I would expect, based on how things are going, the longest run will become our current location.
Right. That's always the goal.
Not this one, but
oh yeah, no, not the online.
Not an online.
Our individual houses. Yeah.
Yeah. So my first one was at the up in Clark Summit, and looking at Katie, this might have been her before I knew you, and if so, you better fess up to this. But a group of us had jumped over on the table and started playing the Resistance. And so we played it 4 or 5 times. And this woman comes up and she's like, this looks interesting. And she sits down next to me, and not that difficult game to explain, but she just couldn't get it, like couldn't understand how to play it. and at one point she gave away that she was part of the resistance by saying, now if I'm blue, I have to, doing all this stuff. And we get to the end of the game, and I am like painfully trying to help this person. And we get to the end of the game, and she flips over her card that she's part of the not part of the resistance, whatever that's called, and looks at me and says, "Oh, I've played this game hundreds of times. That bit works once." And so I wanted to punch her and kiss her, whoever that was, all at the same time, because it was such a great ruse. But not you, Katie. Katie, you going to admit that it was you or no? Wasn't you? Oh, all right.
No,
so
as far as we know,
that was I don't know who it was, but that was my first one, and I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. I was so painfully trying to help this poor woman learn how to play this game.
I have totally absolutely zero
on
poker
Facebook,
face.
Jasmine Ospa says, I remember you from that hotel, Dan. We were on a board game and we gave up on it. And if I remember correctly, you said, do you want to try out a game? And that was Psychic Warfare.
Yeah, we had Psychological Warfare right about then. I wonder what game we gave
remember that.
on. That sounds like a Steve Jackson trick to say, hey, let's not play this one, let's play one of mine. But hi, Jasmine out there.
I have a.
Gavin says that Dan taught him how to play Resistance. So
that might have been Gavin there.
Hey,
Brendan.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Brendan, I was reading some. I'm on the Goodman Games distribution list for updates and all that other stuff, and I kind of remember one somewhere buried deep in it. There was a discussion about in one of the modules or something that got printed, one of your recipes was included. How did that come about?
It was very funny. So Joseph Goodman of Goodman Games is obsessed with really interesting covers. He always wants to have fold outs and weird maps and different colors and all kinds of craziness. So I suggested that we did, remember the old time recipe cards you would get? They were like little index cards with a tiny tab on the top, and they were spaced out. I was like, well, let's do that for the back. We'll make the back cover 3 punch out recipes. Actually, I want to be 4. And I thought, oh, that would be really fun. So the adventure took place in an inn. So I had like the inn's famous stew, their famous bread, their cereal, and then a beer recipe that a friend of mine who's a serious brewer had created. So I was like, yeah, this will be great. We'll just put them on these tabs, and the punch out tabs got to the back of the book. No one's ever done that before. And then for whatever reason, they decided they just abandoned that with the cover, but decided that the recipes were still important enough to package in with the adventure. So they just wound up sort of in the back of the adventure. So that's my recipe for bread, my wife's recipe for stew, my breakfast one, and then, like I said, my buddy Keith's recipe for beer. So
for those that would like to try it out, do you recall what that adventure is that people can track it down?
One of my all-time favorites, the In at 5 Points, and it is one that I play tested. I play tested it for actually. I wrote the story down someplace. The first time I ever ran it, I ran it at MEPACON, and what had happened was I was planning on a different adventure. I think the same thing I was going to run Saturday afternoon, I was going to run Sunday morning, and I had the same group, like almost the exact same group of people show up. And I had been thinking about this adventure for a while. I'm like, okay, well, let's do a different one. Grabbed some pre-gens that I had out of there and ran an improv session of this thing that I had been kicking around in my head. And that was one of the many adventures I ran for the first time at MEPACON with the at Sunday morning.
Very
nice. I had both Johns, the 2 Johns were there for that adventure, and some of the kids. It was a big. It was, and sometimes you do an improv and they're like, oh my God, it was a slog. But it was really fun. It really went well. So I was like, So I had a good time.
Very cool.
What's that, Dan?
That's Amanda.
Cool. That's for the Gates of Relay.
Yeah, Gavin's out there somewhere, right?
Yep, there's
cool.
Gavin's card.
Nice.
I actually have a whole pile of those sitting on my one gaming table. I think you gave me the overrun prints.
Yeah, when you the manufacturer will send a box of extra parts, and so I tried to give the people that their photos there, so you can hand them out freely as increase your popularity somehow.
Cool.
I think that's one of the cool things about MEPACON is that you show up and you don't know anyone, and then you finally meet people, and then you just meet them, over and over again, and you kind of start to form friendships, and people come back to play all your games. I don't know. Tell me a little bit about what MEPACON does mean to you guys. Like what, as a game designer, and maybe personally too.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, honestly, it sounds like I'm blowing smoke, but like I said, MEPACON is my favorite show of it. And for whatever reason, I always find a lot of creative liberty at MEPACON. So I've always gone there. I admit, I've gone to MEPACON with a lot of sort of like half-formed ideas and said, okay, I'll do this kind of thing, and I can think of at least 3 adventures that I wrote that wound up published, all of which were things that I did for the first time there at MEPACON. That were just things that I tried out and did. One of them is Neon Nights. That's published. I ran that for the first time at MEPACON. And that's another one that I deemed too weird to publish, but it's called Symptom of the Universe, and I've run that now. I mean, I must have run it 100 times, but I ran it for the very first time Sunday morning at MEPACON. It's that Sunday morning slot too. I've always sort of like left that for I don't know, done for whatever is giving me grief, because I always get a mix of the old timers and the kids. All the kids of all the vendors come out and play games then, and so I've had a lot of luck with that. So, but personally, I've made a lot of friends there, and I feel like I go to MEPACON, and I mean everybody who is here on this stream, but everybody else, like just the staff and everybody's always been so great to us, and we've always really enjoyed it. And I like being a part of the charity auction when I can, both a donator and one who has spent, let's just say, some money there. But it's always been wonderful, and I'm super grateful for for what MEPACON's kind of done for me as a designer.
Yeah, other than the snowstorm parade year, remember that?
Oh my gosh.
Well, one of the things, there's a lot of what you just said. In addition, because there are, typically 5, 6 game companies there, maybe, I don't know, maybe more. We'll play each other's games and games we're working on. And so that's just a great opportunity to network and see what's going on and work on each other's stuff. It's, I do go to a lot of conventions, and it's well organized. And so there's been conventions I've gone to, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll find you a table. Like they didn't know I was coming and stuff like that. So just the way the signups are and everything is really nice. And of course the people. I think my first year, maybe it was the second year, Jasmine remembers playing it the first year. So psychological warfare, I'd kind of had it, and I thought, I don't know, like if that convention really, like, if I really made a dent or if anything happened. And then when I launched the Kickstarter, it was all these people from MEPACON that were backers, and I'm like, wow, I guess, just being supportive, and even if they hated the game, they were. So that's always been nice too.
Yeah, that was something Jasmine and I were talking about on Facebook the other night, that I said I was nervous about this weekend and launching, and she's like, it's going to be fine. You guys are going to do a great job. And but that's what you guys said. MEPACON's a family, and we feel that as staff, and I'm glad that you guys feel that as attendees and special guests, that you get that support.
And rarely do I actually stay in the place where the convention is being held. So last year was special, although we were up a little late playing that MacGuffin game or whatever that was.
Yes, we were.
3 a.m., 4.
Was that where you had the color thing on your phone? You were trying to detect people, a lie detector?
I forgot about that. I have
I have a
like
list.
Somebody was vanilla. We all had nicknames for each other. I forgot.
We all had nicknames. I have it. Yeah, I have the list.
Rose.
You were Vanilla, Dan. You were Vanilla.
Yeah, so it's fun. I mean, it's just silly fun, but also valuable in the sense, especially in the development side. Pretty much sales-wise, I go through the portal there, so they just take care of that.
Yeah, and I did notice, I was just looking at the portal's online link today. They put it in the vendor. They do have some of your games on there. And they're offering, Katie, are they offering a discount, or they're offering support? You guys can visit the vendor channel on Discord.
Yeah,
they're offering something.
They are. Here it is. Online stores, featured items, and if they don't have it, half of all proceeds from their sales are going to be a donation to MEPACON.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think that speaks for the family part too, right?
Yes.
We've always got these great vendors who, want to support us.
Yeah,
a lot of people are sad because they're missing their cupcakes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Me.
That yes, definitely.
So let's talk about this weekend. Just in general, how has your life changed as game designers, game players, with the stay-at-home orders and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I'm up in New York, so we started pretty early, and pretty much I started moving everything that we have over onto Tabletop Simulator. Actually started first with the games that we're developing, so that I could continue to meet with our playtest groups. And it's kind of been funny in that, Amanda met, because I have one group that's in Binghamton, New York, and another group that's local. And so since we're online, hey, we're having a playtest night. Some of them have crisscrossed and now got to meet each other, which they never would have otherwise. So the good news is we can still playtest, we can still play board games. The other good news is it's just not as good. I mean, it's a little slower. There's nothing like sitting around the table, seeing people face to face and that interaction. And so this is a nice temporary move for us to get together, but it's just not the same as being at that table. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, it speaks a lot for, once we get out of this mess, being able to get back to it. And Brendan, what have you been doing?
I mean, I've been in the same boat. So usually so much of my year is spent, I spend half my year writing and the other half going around to conventions. And, so it's kind of like flipped my life inside out. But, like Dan, I have, gone to running online, and that has been like the saving grace of it. So I'm doing several nights a week. I'm running games for Goodman Games online, and I'm streaming on Twitch. I'm streaming games on Twitch, which if you had told me that a year ago, I'd be like, yeah, shut up, never, But no, I'm streaming a Twitch game. Dan's right. It's never gonna. There's no substitute for face-to-face human interaction. There's no substitute for being around a table with your people and such. But I think it's been, it hasn't been terrible. It's been. I've had a lot of games that were really fun. And at one point, I was telling the story the other day. Like, we had an online convention. Goodman Games did an online convention a few weeks ago, and at one point I was in the middle of describing a scene that was about to become this huge battle, and I realized I had completely zoned on the fact that I was running an online game. I was just telling a story, and I had to look around and be like, oh wow, I'm in my room, I'm here in, so I think that if we, I really feel like if we do it enough, if the technology, I don't know, if the technology advances, I think that we can get to a point where doing gaming online will be a very, very good substitute instead of just a good substitute like it is now, But I've sure had fun, and I know that without it, I'd be miserable. If I wasn't able to do what I'm doing, if I was just sitting home thinking about gaming or writing about it, I'd be miserable. And I think you can't really, I'm sure, Dan, same for board games. If you're not actually playing, you cannot design stuff. You have to be doing it in order to keep it, to do whatever. So if this had been 20 years ago and we had all just been sitting in our homes or trying to talk our kids into playing with us all the time and nobody else, it would have just been terrible. So I'm super grateful for at least for the technology for where we are now. Because it's just been, I've had fun. I've had some fun games. I've had a lot of times I've been like, can you hear me? Voice, can you, I've had a lot of that too, which of course you lose your mind, but it's been, it's better than not playing. That's for darn sure.
Amanda, you've played both board games and role-playing games. My gut is that role-playing games translate better to online.
Yeah, I think we've noticed that too. We had, just in general, MEPACON, I've seen like the schedule, role-playing people seem to take to it better. I'm not sure what the reasoning for that is.
Well, I think it's more suited to it because you're not picking up cards and moving, you're moving your piece, you're rolling dice, and you're storytelling. So it just seems on the surface of it maybe a little more suited.
I think there's also an aspect. I
think a lot of role players have been doing some online role playing, where I think the board games, I want to go to my shelf and pick up a board game. So I love to play both. And I know I've had that kind of like, okay, well now I'd like to play a board game online. How do I do that? Then I get kind of stuck. What's the next step?
I get that. I think board games are more tactile too. I think that they have a lot of little pieces and things. And I think and here's the other thing too. I think that the one of the real differences is that board games can really be just as objects. Especially the more and more, more and more I learn about it. There are a lot of really beautiful board games out there, and the look of the board and the card and the pieces really have a lot to do with the story. I think it's all tied in there, and that is something that maybe there's one technological jump away. When 5 years from now, when it's all holograms and we're all like playing holo chess, and it's like then it'll catch up. But without that tactile bit, I think that it probably feels, if you're a serious board game person, it probably hurts worse than if you're a serious role-playing game person and having to play with a bunch of video chat stuff. And even things like it's easy to do a universal kind of a board for a role-playing game, something like a Roll20 or a Fantasy Grounds, where you have a grid, you upload stuff, and you have chits and moving around there. But board games seem to go, they're so different that it probably doesn't translate. It's probably not as easy to make up a universal board game platform as it has been for role-playing games. And of course, role-playing games, a lot of people like myself just play theater of the mind, and then it's all easy then. So
yeah, in 5 years Ed's going to be a hologram, so
I know, right? Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see actually what technology leaps ahead during this time period.
Yes.
Because a lot of things like Zoom that we're doing right now,
the mic going across.
Yes, they've made improvements, but it's largely been like this for, I don't know, 5-10 years now. And, I work at a college and people are like, wow, we can do WebEx. I'm like, it's not new. Okay. It was always there. You just weren't using it.
This will just push the technology and demand innovation.
Yeah, because I can honestly, board game conventions, I think, are going to be one of the last things to come back. Because how do you safely pass cards around, and how do you safely cram into the vendor hall, and how do you, so I'm not optimistic about actually attending a board gaming convention this year. I don't see it happening, but we'll see. Gen Con is not canceled yet, but the rumor I hear is they're waiting for the city of Indianapolis to cancel them. That way they get money back. If they cancel, they have to pay all their bills.
Act of God clause.
Yeah. And Origins moved to October. So hopefully.
Yeah, that's the downside. We were saying on some of our earlier streams that we've been really lucky with this hotel, because I was worried that, we go to have the conversation that like we can't do this and that we'd have difficulty, but they've just been great about, okay, well, we'll just book the next date and roll everything forward. So
it's so cool.
makes you want to stay there even more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's the getting in and getting out, of places and.
Yeah, no parades there.
No parades. We're very happy with that.
20 blocks with all my stuff in my cart that year. That was crazy.
And it was a snowstorm the night before.
Yeah.
It was one of the worst snowstorms, because I remember that when we were going to come down, it was that Thursday night, and we ended up not driving down because it was so bad. And then the next Saturday they had their holiday parade.
Closed all of downtown.
Yeah.
That was
we
awesome.
had no idea that was
that
happening.
They told us nothing about.
Yeah, it was smooth.
And we're frantically going on social media at the last minute, like, don't try to go this way. Try to go this way.
And that's also in addition to dodging all of the prevalent road destruction going on.
Yeah. No. So the new location, I really did enjoy it. So
good. Yeah, we definitely liked a lot of things about it, and they have been nothing but helpful, and I think it's just going to get better. And I guess one of the silver linings of this break that we have to take from in-person gaming is it gives them even more time to get things renovated in the building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll say the one thing I do miss between having a physical location and the online is I miss if you're sitting at a table and there's only 3 of you and you need that 4th player, you can just look around and grab someone.
Yeah, I see people posting in Discord, but it's hard.
I've done a good bit of that. Yeah, that's, I kind of relied on it, especially, it never was so easy, you could literally go out there and see people who were like looking down the rows of sign-up sheets and be like, you for a game? You guys in? Oh, come on, I'll take all of you, that worked worked real well for me for a long time. So, and here we are. But again, imagine if we didn't have this,
Yeah. It would be a lot worse to have nothing, but it's definitely hard.
Yeah. It definitely is, and I think about how the technology has improved. 10 years ago, one of my really good friends was worked for a year in Japan. He worked in the embassy there, and he was desperate for a game. So we were using, I want to say Skype back then, and we were like doing a game. It was like 6 in the morning his time, 7 in the evening our time. We would sort of play, these parallel things until he had to actually go in and go to work, and we were ready for bed. And it was miserable. You could hardly hear. It was, we kept phasing out. We kept losing things. The technology is way, way better, and I think we'll see a rapid advance because of this. Everyone wants to be the next Zoom right now, and I'm sure you're seeing people who are. I don't even have the vocabulary to say what they're trying to work on. The stability of the platforms, or whatever, but they're working on it even as we speak, though. So,
do you think it'll change the way you guys develop games at all? Like planning for this?
Planning? What's that? It's the way we develop. It's online tabletop simulator because you can't sit around the table. But I've noticed it's actually a little harder to get feedback from the players online. I don't know, because that's something about not being around the table. And I talked to Kurt from Smirk and Dagger, and I said, what's happened here is, I've gotten a few more online sales, but I've lost my main distribution network, which is wholesale distributors, retail stores. And he said, and he's a much, Smirk and Dagger, much bigger company. And he said, same there. I mean, he's gotten really hurt by this. So this is not, for the big companies, they can still do direct sales and do $1 million in advertising and let everyone know they're out there. I think this is a lot, more difficult. Kickstarter is still good, but it's the after Kickstarter part that is kind of falling apart here. But and I don't know how many game stores are going to survive, and then how many other ones pop up, and then you have to reestablish relationships with game stores, and so we'll see. So it's planning as I'm just taking it a step at a time, and pushing forward because I don't think anyone knows anything. What's the economy going to be like? All that stuff.
All that unknown.
Should I even go into a game store in Harrisburg and wear a hazmat suit or what?
Well, one thing you did mention was you said now might be a good time for 2-player games because
at home, and so that's why I've kind of pushed on that Madoshi because it's a 1 and 2-player game. Well, but in terms of what so far, no, there's nothing that's changed in the sense of what type of thing we'll be developing. I don't plan on doing a virus game or anything like that.
Oh, thank God.
I know. I saw one on Kickstarter, by the way, already.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering is one of the things that we were kind of doing. My daughter was wanting to play, like maybe do video games with people over online MEPACON, and what we found was this is not really that easy because there's an online component, but everybody has to own that video game. Right? You can't just play as a guest or something, or maybe
jump on and share.
Figure it out. But that's the component that I think is missing in the. What's great about cons is I can go and play a game that I don't have to buy first.
Right. Yeah, and it's same. You have to have either. I'm not sure if Tabletopia allows a guest. The tabletop simulator, you have to own the product before you can play that board game. Roll20, I think they allow guests. In Tabletopia, I'm not sure.
Tabletopia, I think you could join as a guest. Yeah.
So that's where I think there's some of that aspect of the economy of it. Mm-hmm. That if only a few people play with a board game simulator. Maybe everybody in that world is willing to buy the game. But when we're all like stuck at our house, we're not all going to be willing to buy, right. I don't know how much they are, but if it's a $40 game or something, and especially right now where people might not have as much money as they would normally.
We're just uncertain about if they will,
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, though, my one main retailer says that actually board games do better during a recession, but because people are spending less on entertainment, and they used to be relatively inexpensive. But I think this is different than that. This is the uncertainty of everything. We don't know what things are going to look like. So that makes it a challenge to plan in all sorts of aspects. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say one of my role-playing game designer buddies had he had such a good idea for a game specifically designed to be done on video chat, I could kick myself. So now I'm trying to, it's a war of escalation right now. Now I'm trying to top him and try to come up with a really cool one that would specifically work in the medium. I don't know that I can though. I'm not a Luddite, but I'm not a tech person either, and I'm just kind of like, it's there, I use it, but I don't know, maybe this will wind up inspiring all of us. I think that, restrictions always force you to be more creative, and restrictions on what you are allowed to do always makes you come up with new, interesting ways to get things done. So, if this goes on long enough, I think you will absolutely see people who will, because it is so restrictive, they'll come up with new, cool ways of doing whatever and find, interesting things to do with it going forward. It hasn't hit me yet, but I'm always slow at these kind of things. So who knows?
The other nice thing about the in-person, going back to that, is the energy, like that Dan and Brendan, you project while teaching the games and playing the games. I remember being in the hall and Dan's area, there's a nice steady presence. He's just there. He's managing it. He's keeping it going. And Brendan, you were just like a giant fireball moving around the room and showing up at your table. So that kind of personal energy in both its forms is just phenomenal. And if you're in the presence of it, it's just so much more than video chatting. You can actually feel you draw in people who aren't even playing just to look and see what's going on.
And how do you do that over video chat? You know, I think we're all still learning how to do that. You know? I try, but yeah, it's not the same. You know, my only trick so far, you're actually looking at it, is that I've learned that I'm way better doing games online if I'm actually standing up like I would at a regular gaming table. You know, and it also lets me kind of do some effects. I can stand back and say, all right, he throws the javelin, or he does this, or he's in your face. And, you know, like it's a little goofy trick, but it can help. So,
well, it's interesting. I work at a college, and one of the faculty was talking about things like we haven't had social norms for like video chatting. So everybody acts very unnaturally, where, you know, and I know, like, I have a camera over here and I'm looking at you on the screen. So like our eyes are out of alignment, right?
Yeah.
But all of that may come with time as you're more comfortable with it. But I also think that, like we were saying, that the inability to go to a con makes them more attractive to you, because you can't go at all. So at the time where we can, it's going to be like, oh, I can go to a con. Yay, let's go, you know?
Agreed. Yeah, I think that, you know, imagine a month from now, they have a vaccine or a guaranteed treatment. Yeah, I think it's going to be a real big season for conventions. You know what I mean? And not to mention bowling alleys and pizza halls and every other, you know what I'm saying, you know, every other thing. But I mean, certainly for online, for gaming conventions. I mean, I you know, I've already missed, like, you know, GaryCon and y'all and the UK Games Expo. Like, you know, like, I'm just desperate to get out of the house and go and do my thing around the table with some folks again. So I think that if we're back next year, I think I'm going to, you know, go for a record number of conventions. You know what I mean? Just try to hit absolutely, you know what I mean? You know, I'm going to be doing my own pop-up conventions. Just show up at your house and just be like, we're playing your launch. Show up, roll dice.
We have a great table, Brendan. You can come and use it. It's amazing. Eric built it. Amanda has one too that she built. So, you know, I'm sure she would welcome you in as well. We're only like an hour apart. It'd be great.
And then we could stream it on Twitch.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, so March 15th or so, on my office, we have a whiteboard. So I have my calendar written up there. That was a bad day. Just started crossing out conventions.
Yeah.
The challenge. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was actually at a show. So I had 2 shows in a row right at the beginning of this. So I went to, I was at CoastCon in Biloxi. And right before I left for CoastCon in Biloxi, it was like, okay, well, there's a virus in China. People are worried, but they're not really worried. It's just in China. And then I'm there, and like the day that I leave, it's like, well, now there are a few cases in the United States, so we're going to be really careful. And I went straight from there to Reno for the Gamma Trade Show. And then while I'm there, that's when the whole world was like suddenly, and like suddenly everyone was starting to talk about social distancing, and there was a scramble. Every booth was trying to have hand sanitizer. We were all like, standing, like, no, suddenly it was like, you can't shake hands. And at one point I realized, hey, I'm running demos all weekend, but everyone's using my dice. It was like, you know, like I kind of had all of these revelations about what I shouldn't be doing while I was there staying at a hotel casino, like the gym. I had been to the gym every morning, and then, you know, like while I'm at the gym, the lady on TV is saying you should really try to avoid public gymnasiums. I'm like, of course I should. You know, dropped my weights and ran like, you know, so, so I was right in the thick of it, but I cannot wait for this to be over.
Yeah, I think the challenge is games by their very nature are social, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we play them, so that we could play with our friends, play with our family, and that's kind of been taken away. So we're adapting as best we can. But I think you're right. I think we'll all be very excited to get back to the hotel, and, you know, suddenly any little gripes that we had aren't you know, a big deal anymore.
Yeah, I know, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know.
Yeah, like,
don't get me started. Yeah, miss y'all something terrible.
Well, do we have any questions from anybody out in the audience that we maybe want to answer? I think we caught a few.
Well, Jasmine was suggesting that we need MEPACON trading cards.
Be fun.
Let's see.
Yeah, well, maybe maybe that's like Dan. That could be your next big, MEPACON, the board game. That could be your next big.
There's been like a friend of mine who used to work for Mayfair Games who said you need to, like, for your geocaching game, you should like mimic that at Origins, but to hide stuff around at those big conventions, that wouldn't. You probably have to pay $10,000 to do it, right? They're not going to just let you do that.
We are 100% in for that.
I don't know. To do a convention-sized game at the convention would be kind of fun, but those are not easy. Other than
we would be totally in for that,
or that kind of thing.
We had we had an idea similar to that, Dan. As a joke, we were sitting around playing Echidna Shuffle. This was a couple years ago, and how funny would it be if we took these little plastic echidnas and hid them all over the convention and had people find them? And had I won that in the play to win, that 100% would have happened, but it went to someone outside the group. But if you want to do something like that, we can talk.
I think the last year at the other hotel, didn't Kim do something with her vampire LARP where she hid stuff around out?
Yeah,
I think,
she did. And she had things with certain people.
Yes.
I think Ed had a clue or something, didn't you?
Yeah,
those kind of things work with a mid-sized convention, like you said, Dan. For something huge, that would I don't even know how you do it without being a full-time production.
No, we were going to. This is the best idea we had for guerrilla marketing without having to pay for it till we got caught, which was you can actually custom print urinal cakes that say nothing until they're hit with warm water. So we were going to do DPH games. It's beneath us too, but as soon as one of the officials sees it, then we're probably in trouble. So
that is hysterical.
Yeah,
I love it.
I have all sorts of great ideas we'll never do. So
that's kind of along the innovation of when I was going to the Gen Cons and Origins. It was right around the time when they originally had big tables where people could put flyers and all that other stuff, all that paper product, and they started getting rid of those tables, and MEPACON had flyers up till then, and that's when we went to the pencils, because you could accidentally leave pencils somewhere,
right,
sharpened, that people would go, hey, I need a pencil, and just grab it off of wherever, the table, the floor, bathroom. So I'd be walking around Origins, Gen Con, Dragon Con with big pocket full of pencils, and I just kind of drop one here on tables, take them to the bathroom, put some there, and there'd be MEPACON pencils scattered throughout without having to drop paper anywhere.
You might start seeing some DPH Games pencils showing up.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I'm writing it down.
With a pencil?
MEPACON, no.
I don't think we have any. Oh, there's one. Those were always great because, definitely for RPGs, you always need a pencil.
Oh, yeah. There was a time when I had this huge wad of MEPACON pencils, and I have, over the years, given those out to people, here, there, and everywhere.
Sorry, it's all my alarms going off.
Well, it is almost 7:00. We were only scheduled till 7. So do you guys have any parting wisdom for us? Anything you want to share?
Just thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope that everyone continues to support MEPACON, which is, again, one of my all-time favorite shows, and I still consider it my home show, even a zillion miles away in Georgia. I hope it's, I don't know when I'll be able to get back. Distance is an issue and everything, but I absolutely mean to. I miss all y'all terribly. I miss the attendees. I miss the staff, and I certainly miss Scranton. And my wonderful drive in and Scranton. So just thanks so much for everyone for tuning in.
Thanks. Dan?
Yeah, ditto. And I can't wait till we're all together again. I'm not super optimistic that's going to be soon, but it'll be much better sitting around a table with people.
Yes.
And in the meantime, I'm sure you guys will be participating in other online conventions as well. So people could probably follow you on Facebook or wherever you're found.
Well, I didn't know that tabletop events has adapted to online or is starting to adapt to that. So I'm sure I can use that to find other conventions. So.
And I'm running a weekly online game called Game Therapy that we're streaming on. We're streaming it on Twitch. Sorry, old senior moment. And you can actually sign up, and for that we randomly choose some of the signees four people from the signees. So you can sign up for that game if you want to play with me. Sign up for that on goodman-games.com and look up Game Therapy, and come on over, roll some dice, all y'all.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Picking up that southern.
That's what you get when you live in Georgia.
I know. It took me like 2 months to get my accent back. So now I'm like my weird combination accents from everywhere I've lived. But yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for your time, and we appreciate having you, and can't wait to see you in person.
Absolutely.
Great seeing you guys virtually.
Great seeing you. Miss all y'all, Ed, everybody. So much, Trish.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Bye. Thank you, guys.
All right. Take care, y'all.
Mm-hmm.